Let's go through now to the other league, the NL breakout stars so far. Jared Kelenic. We all knew this was going to happen,
You
even though
okay? You okay over there saying
I'm
that
okay.
name?
Look, as soon as they traded for Kelenic, I hopped on a live stream for Locked On Mets to break down the new Mets killer because I knew, even though he looked bad in spring, here he is in the regular season. He's batting 579, 11 for 19. And the thing that I noted, I went to the splits. I said, my guess is the Braves are not letting him face many lefties. And sure enough, one at bat versus a left-handed pitcher so far. So you got him just focused on facing righties, playing good defense, and Kelenic could be in for a nice breakout season where he really established himself. We've been waiting for so long on this guy who is, a top prospect in all of baseball. Now maybe he finally has his chance to put it all together.
A key piece in a trade for a Hall of Famer asterisk. We'll get to that debate when he's finally on a ballot in Robinson Cano. But yeah, you know when certain players go to teams in situations that say, oh, that is really just the perfect spot for a young guy like that. And he's had nothing but success surrounded by a really deep Atlanta lineup. And Brian Snitker just pushing all the right buttons, especially in that Arizona series. Like, I mean, come on, Atlanta, they continue to do it and find guys. If they don't need to go get Sean Murphy and Matt Olson, that's fine. They can go shop at the bargain bin and get a Kelenic and Reynaldo Lopez. So it's good for Kelenic and all the hype that was hoisted upon him and some of the issues that he had in Seattle with getting sent down to the minors when maybe he was ready, and certain comments that were made by front office personnel. Now he's getting that opportunity to shine, and he's absolutely doing that.
Yeah, he's not going to hit over 500 all year, but could he hit in the high 200s and hit some home runs, play good defense, and just really establish himself as a solid, strong side of the platoon outfielder for now, and then eventually maybe get a shot against lefties in a future season? I think he absolutely can. And the way that I structured our notes for the show today is I went Kelenic, and then I went to some Mets that are playing well to make myself feel better. So Brett Baty and Francisco Alvarez in year two. Alvarez, I was expecting him to break out. I was. We saw it last year, and I also saw a player that showed up to spring training, much improved. The particular area was throwing out runners, and that's something where you see it was just work throughout the offseason realized. And now we're also seeing him offensively step into the box and really just, be on attack mode constantly, look really comfortable and confident in a way that he didn't last year. He had stretches where he hit his home runs. He had 25 home runs as a rookie, but now we're seeing him, pick up singles in RBI situations and not just be swinging for the long ball. Alvarez looks really good. Now, all of a sudden, he's not batting sixth, seventh. He's batting third, fourth in this Mets lineup.
He is an absolute dog. And of course, meaning that in the best way. He is, I think he's already elevated himself easily to a top 10 catcher in the game right now. But I think next year we're going to be talking about this guy as, is he the best catcher in the National League? Like that's how immediate his impact was. Last year, the rookie class for the National League was absolutely loaded. I don't even think he got a third place vote. And you look at his numbers, and one of the best rookie seasons since Buster Posey that we've had from a catcher. So just a deep class. But yeah, Alvarez kind of almost doing it quietly in New York because the Mets have become a little bit less relevant on the national scene. They don't have those same stars. People aren't familiar with Francisco Alvarez, but you absolutely should get yourself familiarized with him because I believe this guy is going to be an absolute dude. He already is right now, but I think it's going to be something that continues. It lasts, and he's going to be one of the best catchers in the game over the next 5+ years.
It's crazy because I'm kicking myself. I have said on my show that by the end of this season, Francisco Alvarez would be the best catcher not named Adley Rutschman. And it sounds so much better to just say the best catcher in the National League. It was right in front of me. I didn't see it. So hats off to you. I'll probably be stealing that for Locked On Mets. So I just want to let you know in advance. Brett Baty, the other side of this coin, though, when it comes to these young Mets players, there was a ton of questions because you look at the numbers last year. I mean, the Mets at third base were the worst team in baseball last season. And that was largely due to Brett Baty. He carried his struggles at the plate into the field with him. And now we're seeing sort of a flip of that. He's playing so good defensively that it seems to be carrying over to the box. He's hitting 290, had a great series in Cincinnati. He's actually been right behind Francisco Alvarez. And it's really crucial to the Mets that Beatty can be this type of a middle of the order bat, because they're going to have Pete Alonso, JD Martinez eventually here, and Francisco Alvarez. So to have a lefty that can break up all those righties is going to be big. I'm telling you, if this defense holds up, it's huge for the Mets this season. I don't even care if the Mets are good. I want Brett Beatty to be good, because that solidifies a position that they desperately need for years to come.
This is like Anthony Volpe is to Derek Jeter, is what Brett Beatty is to David Wright, right? Captain America, Mr. Met. Yeah, it seemed like, Beatty was immediately the next guy up 2+ years ago, and he just really never got that opportunity. 2022 is kind of his first opportunity, but the Mets were really in contender mode. They were gunning for that postseason. Same thing for the last year. It really wasn't until the Eduardo Escobar trade that he started getting that regular playing time. And that's so hard for some of those young guys who are in a situation like that, where they almost can't develop in a natural way. They just have to do what the team is doing and go with that flow and try to fit in a certain kind of mold. And that, I think, maybe put some undue pressure on a young guy like that. So again, in this season, that's kind of a transition season, if you will, because I don't think it's going to be a period that lasts too long. But nevertheless, Beatty is having that opportunity to go out there, play every single day consistently, and it's really starting to show with that young core of guys around, like players like Francisco Alvarez.
Absolutely. And you mentioned kind of the team around you and fitting in. It was a tough team to be a part of last year. I think that dragged Beatty down too. The Mets were just an absolute train wreck. And I think he put a lot of pressure on himself to try to help pull them out of it. Just didn't work. So I'm hoping that these two can at least give the Mets fans out there something to watch all season long. Speaking of a similar type of story here in Washington, if there is a star player to watch on this team, we'll see when Dylan Cruz comes up, James Wood. But right now, CJ Abrams is the guy. He's got a 994 OPS to start the season. He's already hit a couple home runs, got some stolen bases. He's a guy who could legitimately go 40-40 if he puts it all together. That's the guy right now that people are looking at in Washington. So we'll see if he can really build off of what was a good season last year, but he has a chance to now have a great season.
Washington just doing the best that they can in the wake of that 2019 World Series. I mean, I think when we look back, that will be one of the biggest shames, maybe, as far as the sporting world is concerned when it comes to the pandemic, because they didn't really get a chance to celebrate, I think, that World Series title, right? It really wasn't until 2021 when fans were let back in that there was any relevance. But by that point, so many players had left. And so Nationals doing the best they can with offloading the Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, all their key guys. And then, of course, Josh Bell and Juan Soto, which is how CJ Abrams ends up on the Nationals. So they've got all of these young guys, these top prospects that both the Padres and Dodgers said, hey, no, these guys are amazing. These are the players you want to build around. Well, top 100 guys don't end up always as a Juan Soto or a Max Scherzer. Like, there is an in-between land of really solid players who may only get, one all-star game selection. And, Abrams, maybe this is his year to do that. Maybe this is one of those seasons where the Nationals can maybe get 2 players selected to the all-star game in Texas. But Abrams, has to be one of those guys. If there's going to be a young core for the Nationals to build around, Abrams, Josiah Gray, Keibert Ruiz, all those guys have to step up and be those players.
Yeah, that's how they turn the page. And obviously getting the top prospects up midseason hopefully will help further along that core. But Abrams is the guy that I think you can point to right now who I think we're most sure of, but we still have to see it all come together. Let's look at the NL Central. A lot of different guys I want to touch on real quick. Spencer Steer. I know he already broke out a little bit last year, but I'll tell you, he looks like the best bat in that lineup right now. An OPS of 13-13, 3 home runs. He is really swinging a hot bat. And also you have in Pittsburgh, O'Neal Cruz finally back healthy. So let's go through those 2 guys first here on guys who can really become star players in that division.
Spencer Steer at one point when I got notification that I was going to be voting on the National League Rookie of the Year award in the middle of September, he was a kind of a dark horse for my 3rd place pick, because again, he was just doing it at the plate. And while the defensive metrics really didn't like what he was doing, and I don't trust the defensive metrics all that much to give him a ton of credence, especially when they take away, so much from some guys, wins above replacement, their numbers, both for Fangraphs and Baseball Reference. I didn't hold that against him. What I wanted to give him credit for was the fact that he was able to play a bunch of different positions, and that gave the Reds that much more value when Jonathan India came back and they had Noelvi Marte and Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain. Well, where are they going to play all those guys? Well, where they aren't going to play them is wherever Spencer Steer is needed. So he was able to go and find those different spots. And now this year, he's been a little bit more stable, not moving around quite as much. But man, he's been one of those players that just goes out there, does it a little bit old school in many ways. And you like to see players like that kind of get some notoriety when they aren't as flashy as some of their teammates.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone talks about Ellie and everyone says, oh, he's the breakout star this year. And he very well could be. But Spencer Steer is a guy that is really consistent with the bat. Again, it almost feels like you're building off of a breakout, but not enough people talked about Spencer Steer last year. So we're going to talk about him this year. Looking at the Brewers, you got Jackson Churio, who I talked about on last show, athleticism that jumps off the screen. And yet his teammate, Bryce Turang, 7 stolen bases, hitting 360 this year. So they're going to play a really athletic brand of baseball in Milwaukee this year with those two guys.
I mean, you might as well, right? We know that speed is kind of that new way of winning ball games that's been undervalued over the last few years, and now with it being that much easier to steal a bag, the Brewers are definitely taking advantage of that market inefficiency and utilizing their guys and their speed. So I think that's something that Pat Murphy and the entire staff over there in Milwaukee, should be credited with. And I think that's really helping ease Jackson Churio, into this, because as a young man, that power is going to maybe take a little while to develop. We'll wait to see if he can, be a 25, 30 homer guy. But for the time being, he doesn't need to do that. Use your legs. That's a strength. Use that ability to recover and play, day after day after day. And so, so far that's been working for the Brewers in a big way.
It absolutely has. And we're talking about young, under 21-year-old outfielders who might as well throw Jackson Merrill into the conversation here, hitting 303 through 12 games. The Padres said, you know what? We can't go out and replace Juan Soto through free agency, so let's just call up a top prospect and see what he can do. And so far, so good in San Diego for Merrill.
Yeah, he's been nice to see a little bit of a breath of fresh air when, San Diego has been turning the keys over to so many veterans and kind of quadruple A players that haven't gotten an opportunity, but to have just a true prospect like that come up and do it out of position too. Like so many guys, they'll play a position for a year or 2 or 3, and I'm just still learning the position, and it's true they are. Jackson Merrill is quite literally learning that position here on the fly. So I think that's fun, and that's probably helpful, I think, for San Diego's clubhouse to have maybe a little brother when they were operating with everyone acting as a big brother, even the younger guys like a Fernando Tatis Jr. He's young, so he should be the younger brother, but you understand if he's got a bit of that older brother swag. So Jackson Merrill, I think, is probably what the roster needed.
Yeah, sometimes you need that mix, and the Padres, even when they had 2 really young guys in Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. last year, it's young guys who are 2 of the biggest stars in the game. I mean, really, maybe the 2 biggest young stars in the game. So now you bring down the notoriety a little bit, but you add a young player to kind of be a spark plug, and we'll see how it ultimately works out for them over the long haul. We're not expecting Jackson Merrill to replace Juan Soto's production, but to be a solid starting center fielder for them. That's something that I think he can do, and he's proven it early on. Let's move to one more team here. Actually, excuse me, 2 more teams in the West. I'll ask about your Rockies next. Patrick Bailey trying to fill the shoes of Buster Posey. Very tough, but he's hitting over 300 so far, and there are a lot of high expectations on his ability to, for one, be able to command that pitching staff, but also maybe to be better offensively this time around.
Yeah, I think, we should have really seen this coming in a lot of ways, where as soon as they drafted Joey Bart, they immediately turned around and said, Yeah, but Patrick Bailey, we can't really pass up on this guy. So, he did a really good job as a rookie last year, more on the defensive side than on the offensive side. Joey Bart, of course, now getting traded to Pittsburgh. Tom Murphy's there, a nice veteran catcher who's got some pop himself. So I think Bailey's going to benefit from a presence like Tom Murphy, who is a former Rocky. So, Patrick Bailey, I think is in a good spot right there, dealing with mostly veteran pitchers, with San Francisco. They're going to have even more with Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray when they come back. So I think that's going to benefit Bailey, and that in turn is going to benefit the entire pitching staff.
Yeah, it's definitely a team that needs a lot of things to go right, and Bailey is one of those things where they put a lot of expectation on his ability to really start and be the guy, and so far so good. We'll close when it comes to the position players on the Rockies. I said Ezekiel Tovar, but is there anyone else that you would spotlight as a breakout star in Colorado this year?
Well, Colorado fans and the Colorado's front office is hoping Ryan McMahon can finally take that final step that he's really been looking to take for the last 3 years. Had a really big 2019 season, and it seemed like he was destined to hit 30 homers and 100 RBI, and he really hasn't been able to get there yet. It's a month long spell of struggle, and he's had that the last couple of years, even after he signed a 6-year extension ahead of the 2022 campaign. And he's finally really starting to put it together, hit the walk-off grand slam on Friday night, and then in his first at-bat on Saturday, hit a home run, something that only the likes of Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, and I'm drawing a blank on who those other guys were. Legendary guys. Jason Giambi,
Wow.
legendary Rockies player, at least in the Rockies world. He's legendary. So I think Ryan McMahon is that player that we know the defense is incredibly strong. He's a finalist for the last 3 years running. Has a decent shot at winning it this year. I think if he plays his best baseball, and now if his bat can just be consistent, got moved up to third in the order these last 2 games against Tampa Bay, I think he could really polish off and be a true breakout star. Maybe make his first All-Star appearance as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a pretty wide open competition there in Colorado. So Ryan McMahon could actually absolutely grab that one. Looking at our last two honorable mentions, we can call them here when it comes to breakout stars, guys that sort of broke out in a various degree last year. Bobby Miller, we saw him look really good as a rookie. Two very different starts for him this year. First start, 6 innings pitched, 11 strikeouts, 0 earned runs. I'm sure he was featured prominently in your article about the Dodgers' potential aces. And then an inning and 2/3, 5 earned runs. So that's on you, right? The second start being so bad.
It was the Patrick Lyons jinx, 100%.
All right. And then moving on to the other starter that we got here from this division, Michael King. 3.14 ERA in 14 and a third innings pitched so far this year. Best start, his most recent one, 7 scoreless against the Giants on Saturday. So Michael King getting his first full season in rotation. The Padres expecting a lot of him. I think the pressure, came off a little bit when they got Dylan Cease, right? That's all right. You don't have to be one of the top 3 guys. You can be a back end starter for us, but he will be a starting pitcher all year. So those are 2 starting pitchers to watch all season.
Yeah, and kind of being sandwiched right now in the rotation between Dylan Cease and a knuckleballer, Matt Waldron, is kind of a unique position to be in. And if you want to go to the exact opposite place in the baseball world, then a very constricting and a very intense environment there in Bronx with the Yankees. How about a laid back spot in San Diego where their City Connect uniform makes them look like Barbie and Ken rollerblading down Venice Beach? Like that's about as relaxed as you can get. And I think that's going to benefit, someone like Michael King, who's new to that environment. And there's still some pressure there. I think there's still some of the chemistry questions that need to be worked out in that clubhouse. But King is kind of bringing a new, fresh perspective to that. And I think he's enjoying the new environment.